The billionaire CEO pretended to sleep to test her janitor, but what he did left her speechless. "Ma'am, your father's surgery can't wait any longer," the nurse pleaded, her voice trembling with urgency as Lily stood by the hospital door, clutching her small purse. She nodded silently, trying to stay strong, but her heart was breaking inside. Her father, the man who had raised her with nothing but love and honesty, was lying in that hospital bed fighting for his life. Lily had always been the strong one in the family, the girl who never gave up, who took 2 jobs just to pay the rent, but this time, she was running out of hope. With only $37 in her purse and a hospital bill that felt like a mountain she could never climb, Lily felt the walls closing in. That night, she went to her second job at Carter Enterprises, where she worked as a janitor, sweeping the same shiny floors that rich executives walked on without ever noticing her. Her uniform was worn out, her shoes squeaked softly, and her heart carried the quiet weight of a daughter's desperation. As she pushed her cleaning cart into the CEO's office, she sighed deeply. It was late, past midnight, and the city lights glowed softly through the glass walls. On the luxurious couch, she noticed her boss, Ms. Evelyn Carter, lying down as if asleep. Lily tiptoed quietly, careful not to disturb her. She didn't know that Ms. Carter wasn't sleeping at all. The CEO, a woman known for her strictness and distrust, had decided to test her staff's honesty after hearing rumors of small thefts in the building. Tonight, she pretended to be asleep, waiting to see who could resist temptation when no one was watching. As Lily wiped the glass desk, her tired eyes caught sight of something glittering, a gold bracelet, elegant and expensive, carelessly left near the edge of the table. For a moment, she froze. Her mind began to spin with thoughts she didn't want to have. That bracelet could pay for her father's surgery. Just one piece of jewelry could save his life. Her breathing grew shallow as tears welled up in her eyes. She reached out her trembling hand, but not to take it. Instead, she gently placed the bracelet farther from the edge, afraid it might fall. Then, standing there in the silence of the grand office, she whispered softly to herself, "If only I had the money to save Dad." The words came out heavy, soaked with pain. A tear slipped down her cheek and landed on the marble floor she had spent years cleaning for pennies. Ms. Carter, still pretending to sleep, heard every word. Her chest tightened as she felt something she hadn't felt in a long time, empathy. This woman, who had spent her life surrounded by luxury and lies, suddenly saw a kind of honesty that money could never buy. Lily went back to mopping, her movements slow, her eyes red. Every swipe of the mop was a silent prayer for her father's life. She thought about all the sacrifices he had made, working as a mechanic, skipping meals so she could go to school, always telling her, "Never take what isn't yours, Lily. Life will test you, but you must always stay honest." And here she was, being tested exactly that way. She smiled faintly through her tears, whispering, "You taught me well, Dad." She looked at the sleeping CEO one last time, picked up her cart, and quietly left the office, unaware that her small act of integrity had already begun to change her destiny. Ms. Carter sat up slowly once the door closed. Her heart was racing, not out of anger or disappointment, but something else entirely, shame. She had built an empire on power, believing everyone had a price, that honesty was a luxury only the poor pretended to have. But tonight, a janitor with nothing had proved her wrong. She walked to the window, staring at her reflection in the glass. For the first time, she didn't see a powerful woman, she saw someone lost, someone who had forgotten what real value meant. She thought of her own estranged daughter, whom she hadn't spoken to in years after a bitter argument about money and control. She remembered the words her daughter once shouted before leaving, "You care more about money than people." The memory hit her like a wave, and for a moment, she felt the same helplessness Lily must have felt. She sat down, holding the gold bracelet in her hand, the symbol of her wealth that now felt meaningless. Meanwhile, Lily walked home through the cold streets, exhausted and hungry. The city was asleep, but her mind wasn't. She reached her small apartment, where her father's hospital reports lay on the table. She held them close, whispering a quiet prayer. She didn't know how she would save him yet, but she promised herself she wouldn't give up. In another part of the city, Miss Carter couldn't sleep. The image of that tear falling onto the marble floor replayed in her mind again and again. She kept hearing Lily's voice, "If only I had the money to save Dad." Those words echoed louder than any board meeting or business deal she had ever attended. Something inside her began to change that night. She realized that perhaps it wasn't Lily who was being tested, it was her. She had been tested by life, by her choices, by the way she saw people beneath her. And for the first time, she saw the truth: real strength isn't in power or money, but in kindness, sacrifice, and love. By morning, as the first light of dawn touched the glass towers, Miss Carter had made a decision that would change both their lives forever. But at that moment, neither of them knew that what started as a test of honesty would soon turn into a story of redemption, forgiveness, and the power of love that crosses every boundary between rich and poor. The next morning, Lily was sweeping the corridor outside the CEO's office when she heard her name over the intercom. "Lily, please come to my office." Her heart froze. She had never been called there before, and immediately, fear filled her chest. She wondered if she had done something wrong the night before. Maybe the CEO had seen her staring at the bracelet. Maybe she thought Lily was a thief. Her hands trembled as she put the mop aside and straightened her faded uniform. Taking a deep breath, she walked toward the office, her heart pounding so loud it almost drowned out the sound of her footsteps. When she opened the door, she saw Miss Carter sitting behind her desk, the same desk she had cleaned just hours ago. But something was different about her. The usual coldness in her eyes was gone, replaced by something gentler, something human. Lily lowered her head, her voice barely a whisper. "You called me, ma'am?" Miss Carter stood up slowly, holding a piece of paper in her hand. For a moment, she didn't speak. She just looked at Lily, as if searching her face for something she couldn't quite describe. Then, softly, she said, "I was awake last night." Lily's breath caught. She felt her heart drop to her stomach. Miss Carter continued, her voice calm but filled with emotion. "I heard what you said, about your father. I saw what you did." Lily's eyes widened. "Ma'am, I swear, I didn't," but Miss Carter raised her hand gently, stopping her. "You didn't take anything, Lily. You didn't even touch it. You passed a test that most people would have failed." Lily's knees felt weak. She didn't know what to say. Tears began to form in her eyes as she whispered, "I wasn't thinking about tests. I was just thinking about my dad." Miss Carter nodded slowly, then stepped forward and handed her the piece of paper. It was a check, a huge one. "For your father's surgery," she said quietly. No strings attached. Lily looked down at the check in disbelief, her lips trembling. "Ma'am, I can't take this. It's too much." But Miss Carter shook her head, her voice soft but firm. "You can, and you must. I've spent years surrounded by people who would sell their souls for half this amount. But last night, I saw someone who chose honesty even when she had nothing. You reminded me of what I lost somewhere along the way, my faith in good people." Lily broke down then, covering her face with her hands as tears streamed down her cheeks. "Thank you," she whispered again and again. "Thank you for saving my father." Miss Carter walked around her desk and placed a comforting hand on her shoulder. "No, Lily," she said gently, "you saved me." The room was quiet except for the soft sound of Lily's sobs and the distant hum of the city outside. For a moment, the difference between a billionaire and a janitor didn't exist. There were only two human beings, both scarred by life in different ways, both finding something pure in the other. In the days that followed, Lily's father underwent surgery. Miss Carter had personally called the hospital to ensure everything went smoothly. When the doctor announced that the operation was a success, Lily fell to her knees, crying tears of joy. She wanted to thank Ms. Carter in person, but every time she tried, words failed her. How do you thank someone who not only saved a life but restored your faith in humanity? Weeks turned into months, and Lily continued working hard, even though Ms. Carter insisted she take time off. She refused. "Work keeps me grounded," she had said, smiling softly. Ms. Carter admired her even more for that. One sunny morning, several months later, Lily received another message asking her to come to the CEO's office. This time, she wasn't afraid. When she entered, Ms. Carter greeted her with a warm smile. "Lily," she began, "I've been thinking about something. You've shown more dedication, honesty, and compassion than most people in this company. I'd like you to work with me, officially, as my personal assistant." Lily froze, stunned. "Me? An assistant? But I'm just a janitor." Ms. Carter smiled, shaking her head. "You're not just anything. Titles don't define who we are. Our choices do. And you've proven yourself in ways no degree or title ever could." Lily's eyes filled with tears once again, but this time, they were tears of pride and gratitude. She accepted the offer, and from that day forward, everything changed. She no longer wore the janitor's uniform but professional attire. Yet, she never lost the humility that had carried her through life's hardest storms. She still greeted the cleaning staff every morning, still helped when someone dropped papers in the hallway, and still carried the same kind heart that had caught Ms. Carter's attention that night. Ms. Carter, on the other hand, had also changed. The cold, distant woman who once believed money could buy anything was gone. In her place was a leader who treated her employees with kindness, who started programs to help staff families in need, and who made sure no one in her company ever felt invisible again. She often told others, "I once tested someone's honesty, but instead, life tested my heart." One evening, as the sun set behind the tall glass buildings, Miss Carter invited Lily to her office again. They sat together, looking out at the golden light fading over the city. "You taught me something I'll never forget," Miss Carter said softly. "That true worth isn't in titles, but in hearts that choose honesty even when no one's watching." Lily smiled, her eyes glistening. "And you taught me that kindness still exists, even in places I never expected." For a while, neither of them spoke. They didn't need to. The silence between them was full of peace and understanding. Two women from different worlds, one born into privilege, the other into struggle, had met by chance, only to discover that compassion could bridge any divide. Ms. Carter had redeemed herself through an act of generosity, and Lily had proven that integrity can shine even in darkness. That night, they both left the office feeling lighter, knowing they had found something more precious than wealth or success. They had found hope in each other, a reminder that sometimes, the smallest act of honesty can spark the biggest change in someone's heart. And that change can echo forever.